All right. My name is Marcus Diggs. I been operating Hot Diggity Dog D Bordeaux for half my life now, since the early 90s. What got me started on this journey was I just wanted a dog. I just needed a dog. The Shepherd mix I had was getting old, and just was looking for a dog to replace him. And I thought I wanted a Rottweiler, and went and searched for a Rottweiler when I ran into a Dog D Bordeaux. And pretty much, been hooked from that point on. Eventually bought him, and never really trained him. He pretty much trained me, and when I learned they only live 8 to 10 years, that's what I was told at the time, I thought that wasn't long enough, and I thought it wasn't a bad idea to get him a girlfriend. Little did I know.
Right. What was the initial, what hooked you on the Doggy Bordeaux? What was it about their personality that you really took to?
Well, it was the look of him, for one, just the look of him. When I saw him, he had pretty much taken residence up on a bed and was laying there looking like an old prize fighter or something. And, what initially attracted me was definitely his look. There was a Rottweiler puppy there too, but I didn't think he even compared to the Bordeaux. It was definitely the look of him that attracted me at first. I took him home, and it wasn't easy getting him home. I fought with him all the way. Got him home, and I tied him to a tree. I left him there. Came and fed him. Gave him some water. Thought I'd take him out for some training. I got about half a block when I figured training was over. The dog listened to everything I said, and from that point on, he was pretty much my riding partner, my companion. We went everywhere together. Well, after getting him, I got into the history of the breed, find out what I could about him. And they have a pretty interesting history, depending on who you listen to. They trace them back to the molasses of Epirus, which is pretty much where all the big dogs pretty much get traced back to. Recent history, I was taught that they were near extinction. The wars in France pretty much brought about their extinction. Between the French Revolution and World War II, they pretty much went extinct, and it's said that everyone is descendant today from 3 pairs that survived after the war. I'm thinking before the war, there was more variations too. Before the war, they took 3 different types of Mastiffs in France, and they combined them into one standard. And that's basically what the Bordeaux is today. Those 3 pretty much mixed into one standard breed, and that's what we're dealing with today. The different types in the breed come from those 3 initial hybrids that were mixed.
What were said to be the breeds within those first 3?
Well, they were all Mastiffs out of France.
Uh-huh.
It's been a while since I referenced them, but you had the Parisian, you had the Toulouse, and the Bordeaux. which were three distinctive types. I forget the variations in them, but one was smaller boned. One had a scissor bite. They say there was one with multiple colors in it, and they say there was even a miniature one that's supposed to be extinct today. And there's no real good references to what that miniature was all about. People have a lot of different theories about what that was. You do get Bordeaux today who weigh in at less than 70 pounds. But there's people who think that the Pinkinese or something would be the miniature Bordeaux from back then. You know, so a lot of different theories, you know, a lot of speculation. But, yeah, they go way back and got a lot of history to them. What they are today is pretty much basically those three types of mastiffs that were in France. I said mixed into one standard, and that's pretty much what we've been playing with today. Trying to take those three and put them into one standard, which I don't know. You can see. I see a lot of variations in them. I don't know if everybody else does, but I see the differences in them, and I find it I don't know, intriguing, fascinating. It's you know, it's been interesting to play with them because I see all types out of my lines. You know, I see smaller boned ones. I see bigger boned ones. You know, I produced a puppy who weighed in at 194. You know, they haven't been that big in like 100 years now. But, you know, I disowned that one when he came out. I think he was 120 at 6 months. I think that's when I disowned him. and you know, and I've had small ones too. It's like the first female I got, I never bred her, but she was a 65-pound adult. And I always kind of regretted having her fixed and not breeding her and trying to bring a miniature version back into being. But I don't know. Later I had a 100-pound one who looked just like that 65-pound one, and I bred the 100-pound. And she's still a small Bordeaux. You know, the 65-pounder was something else.
Wow.
She had endless vitality to her. She'd run all day.
Wow. Yeah.
She'd never retire. You know, she'd run as much as you could run her.
So what was the original jobs that they had in France?
Well, they say, you know, some people say their history goes back 5,000 years. So as far as the tasks they've had throughout history, it's been varied. You know, they say they've been warriors, they've been travelers, mercenaries, shepherds, and I guess they got the nickname the butcher dog in France from, you know, from the butchers caring for them. But they drove cattle to market, so I guess that's where that name came from. I've seen pictures of them working like the Red Cross during the war, and moving bodies and what have you, taking them to the hospital and things like that. Various jobs throughout history. Mm-hmm. You know, guard dogs. You know, so they used to protect the wealthy in France, but they say after the war it was the peasants' dogs that survived. It's the elite in France pretty much lost their dogs and probably their lives too in the process.
Mm-hmm. What is the AKC standard today, and how does that compare to, say, 40, 50 years ago?
That's a good question. Yeah. You're going to get me in all kinds of trouble now.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't really paid a whole lot of attention to the AKC standard. You know, from what I've heard, I didn't really like their interpretation of the dog. As far as temperament and build and a lot of things, I don't think AKC really got right on the dog. I thought that the AKC standard made the Bordeaux sound more like a bull mastiff, and the bull mastiff is described, in my opinion, more like a Bordeaux. As far as the old standard goes, a lot of things have changed. I don't think they're supposed to get as big today as they were in the old standard. And other than that, like I said, the variations are pretty much what throws any of the standards off. Mm-hmm. Because taking the three types of breed of dog that they use to make the standard, I don't think any of the dogs can really fulfill it. I think all of them end up showing attributes from one of the other lines that were combined to make this standard in the first place. But I think it's a little tricky for any of them to really fit into it and be a perfect Bordeaux. They say there's no perfect dogs. I tend to say, well, I think, the dogs are perfect for somebody. They may not be perfect according to the standard, but I think all these dogs are perfect for somebody. And end up, I hear more often than anything else, what great dogs I've given people as puppies. Everybody thinks they're the greatest dog they've ever had. So, and that's pretty much what keeps me hooked on this breed. Initially I just wanted to keep one dog in my house. And I don't know. They're interesting, and they're very very compelling. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I had one in the house since I bought him a girlfriend. And they just kept going up. I had a baker's dozen in the yard at one point.
Wow.
Yeah, it was quite an interesting collection. I have to say so myself.
Right.
So I've seen all types. Their temperaments seem to be pretty even. I haven't had any that fall out of the standard temperament, which seems to be pretty reserved for the most part. They're not very aggressive with their protection. They're much more happy stopping a situation with their bark and what have you than rather getting any more physical with it. Other aggressive dogs are probably the biggest issue with them. They tend to expect respect from other dogs. They usually get it. If they don't, then that tends to be the biggest issue with these guys, is other dogs that are have as dominant an attitude as they have.
Mm-hmm. Do you participate in the dog show world?
Not anymore. I think I've participated once since AKC got into it.
Okay.
I'm thinking the first AKC show I went to, I didn't bring a dog. And there was 6 of my puppies were there being presented at the dog show. And I just went in and enjoyed the show. I was like, hey, I can't lose. I had half a dozen of my puppies in the ring that day.
Wow.
Wasn't even expecting it, I just happened to show up and, found 6 of my dogs entered.
That's awesome.
And then the last time I went, I took a puppy in. It was quite the story. I was late. He let me in without getting a ticket, asked me what breed I had. I told him. He said, well, they're going in the ring. You better hurry. I had forgotten my lead and everything else for this dog. I bought a lead, rushed him into the ring, and ended up, this was, I forget how old this puppy was, maybe 5-6 months or so. But I ended up getting best in breed puppy with her.
Wow.
And after winning that, I figured I'd retire again.
Yeah.
I didn't see any need to try to top that feat, I never thought I was, the like Westminster kind of guy,
Yeah.
I think, and before AKC, we used to go to American Rare Breed.
Right.
Used to have a lot of the dog shows, and I thought they were a lot more fun. I could show up in my jeans and my sneakers and show my dog and win. And, I thought it was more enjoyable then. I don't know that AKC isn't. I'm just, I was accustomed to that, and it stopped doing that for a while too. Just other things in life, kind of took me in another direction. And even before AKC started, I stopped showing with Harbor. But yeah, I enjoyed those shows. They were a good time. I didn't really care if my dog won or not. I knew what my dogs represent. Liked showing them off. Rather surprised to win when I did win, but I did a lot of winning.
Mm-hmm.
during Arbor, and it was usually a good time at those shows.
What is the standard that you look for within your program?
Wow. Well, my first male would be my standard. Very intelligent. I didn't have to speak to him. He picked up on hand signals and just feelings. He could read me. He wasn't very trusting, especially of males. I don't know. He was a special character. He stood 29 inches at the withers, which is too tall for the standard.
Mm-hmm.
He had a 29-inch head, which was perfect for his height. According to the standard. Very athletic, strong, intelligent, even-tempered. He snored a lot.
Mm-hmm.
He was a heavy snorer. But man, he loved babies. He used to chase women with baby strollers. He'd insist on seeing that baby, Didn't care that the mom was having a heart attack. He wanted to see that baby. Like I said, other dogs would give him respect. Shepherds and Rotties would bow down to him. He was an impressive, I tell everybody, he was an old soul. I may not see him again, but I know he'll be back because I know he was here before. He knew too much. I couldn't teach him anything. He already knew too much. He was something else. Like I said, he started all this. And I don't know if, I think I've had a couple dogs since him that were close to him that had his potential, but with multiple dogs in the house, I never saw anybody actually equal him. Like I said, me and him, he could read me like a book. He knew, he just, I don't know, something about his instincts, he knew. You'd have to go way back with the older standards, I think, to see something like him.
Yeah.
I think they really cover him, in the new standard. I think he'd be disqualified. He'd be too tall. Maybe not, though. He was so beautiful. It's like, there's not a whole lot of things that would get him thrown out of a ring. Mm-hmm. He was a pretty amazing specimen. Everybody thought so. He only weighed 120 pounds. But nobody ever guessed his weight at less than 150. That's just the type of presence he had.
Mm-hmm.
I said he had a massive head. He had a huge chest. He had no waistline. And he could jump 6 feet high. It's like the athleticism, I think you lose in a lot of the dogs today. or something else. If it's not the athleticism, you'll lose other things. You'll lose girth, you'll lose weight. It's like I said, I think there's too many variations in this breed to really have a perfect specimen. But Conan, he was pretty close. If he wasn't it, he had to be pretty close. But like I said, by today's standard, I think he'd be pretty close to being disqualified too. I used to say that I had the best rear ends in the country.
Mm-hmm.
So and seeing that the lines I dealt with, my females came out of Steve and Wendy Norris's place, Norris Place Kennels, and she pretty much concentrated on soundness. So I think I inherited that and kind of insist on that. It's something I took for granted at first. But as time goes on, 30 years later, I see it's something that you could easily lose too. You got to put a bit of effort on that. But the rear end, I always thought was the dog's best attribute, the strength in their hindquarters and their soundness. The thing that's been elusive to me is Conan's head is something that is a rare find. I said he had a 29-inch head. I forget if it was Curly or who it was that showed me a dog who had a 32-inch head. And I wanted to use him for stud, but when I saw him in person, I decided I couldn't. I had told him at the time that I wasn't. He warned me about the rear end of the dog, and I told him I wasn't worried about the rear end because I had the best rear ends around. I was looking to put that right head on top of it. So when I saw this dog, he had absolutely no rear end on him. It's like he didn't even have hind legs. Maybe half a hind leg. And he scared me. I figured I'll do without the head, rather than mess with the rear end like that. I couldn't do it.
What are some of the faults that you see in a lot of Bordeaux programs that you try to avoid?
Well, the faults are, I guess you got to start with the head. The head type, and like I said, the variations in them are going to give you variations in everything. Mm-hmm. And the head is their main focal point, and that's the thing you got to first start with is you got to have a nice head. It's got to be symmetrical, trapezoid, and they're not always that way. The size is another thing that they don't mention much anymore. But the Bordeaux, when I first got into them, was supposed to be recognized as having the largest head of any dog of its size. I don't hear that mentioned much anymore. The dog isn't that much of a prime point with them anymore. I don't know why it kind of went to the wayside, but that used to be the main issue with the dogs. The big head was everything. Not so much anymore. They're judging more of the whole dog these days. The movement, the strength, the musculature, the wrinkles, the loose skin. All of that seems to play a part. As far as the faults that present themselves, I would think every program's gonna present with some faults here and there. Mm-hmm. Because, like I said, just because of the variations, all the dogs are going to. This last litter I had, I felt it covered the whole gamut of what's in the dogs today. I think I had all types of body types, and I think it covered the whole gamut. From the smaller smaller bone, little, athletic types, to the low standing, wide bodied, I don't know what you'd call them. Just the typical, what people think of as a mastiff type, just a big thug, ran the whole gamut. I've had, from athletic males to wide-chested males to oversized and big girls to little fast ones. I think you get that in all these programs, whether you like it or not. You're gonna see portions of all that come through. I don't think anybody's really standardized this breed yet. The standard's one thing, but I don't think anybody breeds true to that standard. I think everybody who breeds gets things that are way off from what the standard tells you it should be.
Right.
And that just comes from their history and what's in them.
Right.
There's a lot of things that are in them. I think Triquette said you're supposed to be looking out for all those recessive genes, to present themselves. Supposedly there was a brindle, and other things that haven't been seen in a long, long time, or if they have been seen, they probably haven't been believed. I saw one litter, I think out of Ohio, that was supposed to be a red brindle. And from what I saw, I couldn't say it wasn't. Right. It looked like a reddish blonde, a brindle type coat. Don't know how they did it, where it came from. It's supposed to be pure. I can't say it's not.
Right.
It used to be there. So if that's what it was, I would have, I think I would have took it a lot further than pictures on Facebook. And got Triquette out to my place or something to have him take a look and tell me what he thought. Like I had a black mass puppy once, and Triquette came and he judged the nationals, and I brought this black mass dog out here to see him, and Buck was Isabella in color with a black mask, and he was thin boned. Very athletic, and Triquette judged him. He came out to the middle of the class. He passed 4 or 5 red dogs, came to me, and he judged Buck. And everything he said about Buck, he said Buck was excellent from head to toe. He said, definitely Bordeaux. And he said, but it's his color. He goes, his color was like a golden Isabella, lightest I've ever seen. And he said his color, he goes, but because of his color, he goes, I wouldn't breed him. I couldn't disagree with anything he said. I brought him out there to get his opinion, but everything he said, I pretty much had the same feeling about. His color was what I questioned the most. And he said because of his color, he wouldn't breed him. And I had never had Buck out of my yard, but I took him around the ring. He told me to take him around, and when I took Buck around the ring, Buck walked the ring like he was a show horse or something, high stepping. Head up, high stepping. It's like on our way in, everybody was like, is that a Bordeaux? Is that a Bordeaux? When I took him around the ring, he was like some kind of show horse going around the ring, head up, every step, amplified. It's like exaggerated. Every step he took, it was something else to see. I didn't know. I was like, where'd this dog come from? I couldn't even recognize him at that point. And at the end of it, after he judged all the red dogs, Triquette stood back and he said, I'm not going to award a ribbon to this class. And I screamed. I was like, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Because when he told me, he said he wouldn't use buck for breeding. And I looked to my left at the red dogs to my left, and I looked to the red dogs to my right, and I looked back at him, and I just thought to myself, I'm like, yeah, but you're still going to have to give me that ribbon.
Right.
But at the end, he didn't give anybody a ribbon. He said, this class is a bust. I'm not giving this class a winner. And he walked out of the ring.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I said. I'm like, wow, that's right. That's the right decision. After what he told me, he had no other choice. He couldn't give one of those other dogs placement above Buck.
Right.
Isabella or not, he was the best dog in the ring.
Wow.
He already said as much. He said he was excellent, head to toe, everything perfect.
Yeah, that's good.
I never bred him.
Do you
never bred him.
Do you regret that?
I regret a lot of things.
Yeah.
But no, I made my decision, and like I said, it wasn't just that. It's like there was other circumstances that arose, and yeah, but I never bred him. Yeah, I regret not seeing what I might have been able to do with him. You know, what he would have produced and everything, but I don't know. It wasn't meant to be.
Right.
I kind of followed what your cat said, you know. He said, it looks too much like a bull mastiff, is what he said. He says, we don't want to be confused with the bull mastiff.
Right.
So I wouldn't breed him. I'm like, oh, well. Whatever. That black mass, though, is from the bull mastiff.
Right.
You know? Like the bull mastiff slipped in there, the Neapolitan is slipped in, you know, and who knows what else is slipped into these bloodlines.
Right.
But they know those two are in there. At some point, they got in. I'd have to say, I think the current issue would be liver problems. You know, that's the best I can come up with is liver issues are probably one of the biggest concerns. And one of the things that I try to avoid the most would be any type of liver issues. So, you know, I think that is the catalyst to a lot of the other issues you see in the dog. So I think if you can keep the liver in good health, you can keep the dog in good health. And if the liver goes bad, then yeah, the dog's going to follow. But I don't think the health issues we have today are anything like what was around 30 years ago. I think there was a lot more health issues back then. I used to lose a lot of dogs to bloat, and took years, but I think I've solved that problem for the most part. 95% of that problem. And I think the problem with bloat was with the kibble food that we feed dogs today. I think the kibble, being a dry food, is what causes the problem. I found that moistening the food and letting it expand before you feed it to them seems to alleviate that problem that easily. I use raised dishes too. That may have helped, but I think just moistening the dry food does a lot to eliminate the problems they have with bloat. The other issues like heart issues and they used to say seizures too, but I don't know if anybody's been able to really track the problems with seizures in these dogs. They said they tried to do a study on it and trace it to a bloodline, but I don't know if that ever went very far. I seem to have more dogs that have like the twitches in their sleep. Mm-hmm. like the dreaming dog. They're running and chasing and stuff in their sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder how much of that, I see that every now and then. And I wonder if that was ever confused with, seizures in a dog.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen the seizures, but I've seen a lot of the twitching in their dreams. And some of them, they're very vibrant twitching and kicking in their sleep. What other issues? The skin issues I've never really had a problem with. Every now and then somebody calls me with a dog having allergies or a reaction to something. I'm thinking one party spent thousands on tests, and I think they finally said it was the mulch around the tree was what they were reacting to. But never really seen any issues that were prevalent. Every now and then you have an anomaly that jumps out at you, where you'll have one with a skin issue, heart issue, hip issue, but they're far and few between. So most of my dogs are very athletic. They fly. I don't know if all the programs can say as much, but I take pride in how athletic mine are. Their temperaments are great. Their intelligence, like I said, they're stubborn. That's probably one of their biggest attributes. These guys are very hard-headed, very stubborn. And the big C, I guess, as far as health issues, cancer.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first 10 years, maybe 15 years, I never saw that. What I did see in that time was, I said I lost quite a few to bloat. That was the biggest culprit in the beginning. Maybe that's why I didn't see cancer. It's because the ones passed from bloat long before you'd be worried about cancer. But cancer seemed to start creeping in maybe 15 years ago. I started to see that pop its head up. I still don't see it often, but every that a lymphoma. What's the brain tumor? I had one with a brain tumor. Well, actually, two with a brain tumor. The second one, they did a laser surgery on her, and they got 2.5 more years out of her. State-of-the-art type procedure. They went in with lasers and removed her tumor. And that dog lived to 12.5. But I said it took laser surgery to get her there. Cancers, I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if those don't fall back to like liver and organ issues to begin with too. I said that's the thing I concentrate on most these days is trying to keep the liver in good health. I think if you can do that, then you're pretty golden. I said I expect to get 10 years out of my dogs. A lot of them fall short. Some of them make it past that. I've had 11, a few 12-year-olds at this point. One that was close to 13. The girls tend to give you more longevity than the boys, especially girls who aren't bred very often. If you have none or just one litter out of a girl, I think she's bound to give you a longer lifespan. The boys are pretty hard pressed to get to 10. Mm-hmm. They usually fall short of that 10-year mark. It's kind of hard to get them over that threshold. I've had a couple make it past 10, but I said most of them, the majority of them, don't see 10 years of age.
What do you think the culprit of the liver issue is?
I said that's another question that could get me in trouble. When I first started, the breeder who bred my first Bordeaux used to tell me that he said he told me don't go overboard with vaccinations. He said these dogs have been around for thousands of years without our help, and they really don't need all those shots, which is just some advice he gave me, one day, and just chatting with him. About 10 years later, the industry started pulling back on the vaccinations. They started giving them later. There's some that they stopped giving, and it's like their whole protocol changed, which makes me think that he was right with the vaccines. They changed their whole protocol. It's like, it went from like a 3-week shot at 3 weeks old to they didn't want you giving it till it was 6 weeks old, and they started playing with the shots like that. So I think the shots and the, just the vaccination protocols we give them may have an effect. I think the antibiotics and stuff we're quick to feed them have an adverse effect. I think pain meds have an adverse effect on them. I think, and even, I like to supplement the food I feed them. And I think even that can have an adverse effect on the liver, if you overdo the supplements, any of that can have an ill effect on them. The raw food has taken off, and I've tried that at one point, but I thought it was, for my program, it was a bit much for me to feed raw. Raw means you've got to pretty much worm them regularly. That's another thing I don't really believe in, is the worming them excessively, I think, also causes liver damage. So raw, I don't know. It's like some say if you feed raw consistently and do it right, then there's no need to worm them. And that may be true, but I don't think it's as easy as that. I think we pretty much geared these guys into being domestic, and to taking them back to a raw diet, I think, may be a little more to it than people realize. And I don't know what the right combination is right now. I think canned food may be a good alternative to both the dry and the raw. The problems with dry food and raw food, that feeding canned may be the way to go. But I'm not sure. I'm still feeding dry. I think the dry food has come a long way. Just in the 30 years I've had these dogs, I think they've gone leaps and bounds from where they were to where they are now. I think you can get a lot more decent dry foods these days. The canned food, I'm thinking we probably should have never gotten off of canned food. That was probably the way to feed them all along. They say we only went to dry food because of World War II. We needed the metal for other things other than cans of dog food. That's when we came up with dry dog food. And I think that was probably a big milestone in the history of these dogs, these domesticated animals. And some dry dog food, a little bit of water, mix it together, to where, just to where the kibble is wet, is moist.
Right.
Not, you don't soak it. If you soak it, I think it would take, it would probably ruin their appetite. I don't know if they'd eat it if it was super soaked, but
Right.
I just moisten it a bit just to, make sure it's wet, and I mix that up with, I might throw some chia seeds or some turmeric or some plantain or something else in there, or even some wet food, some bone broth or something. And I mix it up and let them have it from there. But yeah, I've been thinking about the canned food. Just trying to figure out how feasible it is. That's a lot of cans if I'm going to feed, half a dozen masters with canned food.
Yeah, no, I get your dilemma for sure, and I would do the same if I was in your shoes.
I'm not getting younger either, just carrying all those cans around.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm hoping everybody, realizes that now, that, the dry dog food, if you're going to feed dry, you gotta moisten it. You can't just feed it to them dry. You gotta moisten it first, let it expand, and, let it sit a minute before you feed it to them. Let it expand a bit before you let them go after dry food like that.
Yeah, I'm going to start doing that actually if I run out of the second food.
Yeah, don't feed the dry,
Yeah.
dry. You have to feed them dry. You got to moisten it a little first.
Yep.
Especially with these guys, Like I said, I used to lose quite a few of these guys to bloat.
Right.
And ever since I started wetting their food, I haven't had an issue. I think I've lost one since then, and she was pregnant and fence chasing when I lost her.
Yes.
So it wasn't the food. I think it was all the activity. She's running around like a bat out of hell and carrying a big load, and I think that's what kind of messed her up.
Yeah. What does your kennel setup look like, and what's the reasoning behind that?
Logistics, huh?
Yeah.
Well, that's funny because it's like my kennel setup is pretty much any way she wants it to go.
Right.
I have no say. I've pretty much thrown in the towel on that. I've got a fence yard, so they've got room to run. I used to have separate quarters outside for them, but I don't know, my dog house has ended up destroyed, so they've got the separate quarters, but there's not a whole lot of shelter out there. I think I've got one or two small dog houses left. These guys pretty much stay in the house these days, It's like it's me, her, and everybody sleeps inside at night. Even if they'd rather be outside most of the time, because she'll let them in again and again. It's like I can't win. It's like it's her house. It's her house, and I'm just waiting for the time when she tells us, me and the dogs, to get out. It means it, But yeah, they seem to be happy, all over the house. They're all inside at night. That's not how I would do it. It's like when I started, they stayed outside. Conan would sleep outside my bedroom window. Mm-hmm. And I could hear him through the walls, even in midwinter. The house is closed up tight. It's like I could hear him snoring right through the walls. And I'm thinking, you could hear him clearly. But for the first 10 years or so, these guys were all raised outside. Even my puppies at about 3 weeks old started spending the nights outside. And I'm here in Connecticut, even in the wintertime, they'd be outside at about 3-4 weeks old. They'd be spending the nights outside. I think it made them healthier. I think it built their immunity, made them. I think it made them a lot of things. just acclimating them at that age, I think, did a lot for them overall. And if I had it my way, yeah, they'd still have quarters outside. I had dog houses. I'd keep cedar chips in them. It would keep them warm in the winter, keep them dry, and they keep them cool in the summer. And that's how I'd like to raise them. But they said I've been. I said well, I moved into her house like 20 years ago, so. That's all a done deal now. Everybody's inside.
Yeah. Yeah,
but I think acclimating them is, I think it's good for them. They prefer the cold,
right,
to the heat of summer. You know,
right.
I mean, they'll lay out in the snow all day, playing it all day. It's like, I had a puppy once, about 3-4 months old. And I went to work, 14-hour shift, and I left for work, and I forgot to bring this puppy in. And she was only a few months old. And it just so happened that there was already a foot of snow on the ground. And that night, it got to, I think it was 26 below zero that night.
Wow.
Was the wind chill. And I'm 14 hours at work, and I'm beside myself. I'm thinking, I just killed this puppy.
Right.
I left her out there all night. I don't know if she's going to survive. And I rushed home in the morning after my shift, and I run out back, and this puppy is out, and she's playing in the snow, all by herself, frolicking around, jumping and playing and rolling in the snow. And she runs over to me, and she jumps up and puts her paws in my hands, and it felt like I had just grabbed hold of a hot radiator.
Wow.
And she jumped and put her paws in my hand. It's like her paws were generating their own heat. It's like steam coming off of her hands, off of her paws. I couldn't believe it. It's like they had their own heat source. She's out running in the snow, and when she jumped on me, her paws are hot. Do that. But mine are usually born inside.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
At about a month old, I start moving them outside. Start getting them used to the outdoors.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
How are they?
Outside? That's interesting because I've always been a little too scared to go there.
Yeah. No, I would be too. I couldn't do it.
It's too easy to lose these guys.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
Can't see it. But they're all born inside. I had one litter I did outside, but it was springtime, and the weather was perfect. It was like, it was like 70 degrees tops, Mm-hmm. And I figured it was a perfect time for her to whelp outdoors. So I let her have her, she had already dug her little hole outside, and I let her have the puppies outside, and it was perfect. It was the best litter ever, the best whelping, easiest, carefree whelping I have ever had. Couldn't have asked for anything more. But that spring, that gave me that perfect day to have those puppies outside. Before that spring, we had a winter that we had no snow. We never had a deep freeze the whole winter. So these puppies that were born outside must have attracted every flea in the state.
Oh, right.
That blood, before I knew it, all the puppies were covered in fleas. And they're newborns.
Yeah.
And it took me a while. I'm thinking about $1,000 worth of oil.
Wow.
It took me a while before I came up with a concoction that will treat these fleas on these newborn puppies without doing harm to these puppies.
Right.
But yeah, I'm thinking $1,000 in oils. I finally came up with a concoction. I thought I was going to take it commercial. It was so good. So, you know, and then I found, I think Dr. Richards is his name. He had a product out there that was almost the same recipe as mine. I think mine was a little safer, but his was so close. I figured I probably couldn't compete with him.
Right, right. So how are they as whelpers, the moms?
Oh, they're both. It varies. Usually they're great.
Mm-hmm.
You know, thinking what I've learned over the years. Yeah, usually just, you know, I had one dog who she threw a few puppies and then she stopped, and could tell she still had puppies on board, but she dropped 3 of them, and then she stopped for, I think it was like 5 hours. 5 hours later, and she still hadn't thrown another puppy. I got nervous and called my vet, thinking I had an emergency on my hands. Mm-hmm. You know, and my vet asked me. She goes, look at her face. What does she look like? I'm like, you know, she looks normal. She's just laid back and, you know, chilling. You know. And she says, does she look nervous? I'm like, no, she doesn't look nervous at all. She goes, let that dog do it in her own time. Mm. And then she says, and don't call me 3 o'clock in the morning. Right? So I'm like, all right. So I'm waiting. About another 5-6 hours pass before she starts throwing puppies again. So it was about 10, 11 hours between puppies that she threw. It's like between the last one and the next one, about 11 hours had passed.
Wow.
But she delivered the other ones without a problem. But I'm thinking every time these girls, you know, I'm thinking they've shown me different scenarios, you know. I mean, I've had dogs who man, the whole room is painted red after they have a litter. Mm-hmm. Blood everywhere, you know. Then I had one who, there was no blood. And I think she had 8 puppies, and there was no blood. The first puppy she dropped, she whelped. She like yelped before she dropped it. So it's like, and she spit a puppy out. And the puppy would hit the floor half dry. It's like had no umbilical. I mean, the umbilical was cut, you know, and the puppy's half dry when she spits it out and it hits the floor. All right. She had 8 of them like that.
Wow.
And I didn't even have to watch, because before she had one, she'd go, she'd spit another puppy out. I think after the 3rd puppy, I swung a mop across the floor. She had 5 more. I never used that mop again.
Wow.
And the room is clean. You know, she's got 8 puppies. Now she's laying there. She's nursing 8 puppies, and 8 placentas came out of her in one single pile.
Wow.
Just as neat. Like I said, virtually no blood involved. It's like, so yeah, like I said, but they're great mothers. I've had mothers who, they wouldn't leave their puppies for like 2 weeks, man. Mm-hmm. It's like, I mean, would not leave, not even to pee. I'd have to drag them outside just so they could pee, and they'd let loose like one drop. They'd run back inside, and they'd count all the puppies 2-3 times. They'd count them all. And then lay down. And yeah, for 2 weeks, wouldn't even take a pee nursing those puppies. So they're usually great mothers. Not all of them, but 9 out of 10 are awesome mothers. And as far as the whelping goes, yeah, it all depends. Each one can be a little different.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't had much luck with C-sections. I had one C-section done on a female, one puppy. One puppy needed a C-section to get it out, but by the time we got it out, it was too late. I waited 5 hours for the ER doc. He said if I got there a couple hours early, we could have saved it. And the other one, I had a female who was 2 weeks postpartum. So I took her in, and my vet was on vacation, and her stand-in didn't want to do it. And I had to beg her. I begged her like all day to go in and do this C-section. And she made me wait till the end of the day. She says, well, let's wait till the end of the day, see how she's doing, and we'll take it from there. At the end of the day, she's still the same, nothing. And so the vet decided to go in and do the C-section. She pulled 6 live puppies out. And eventually I lost all of them too. The mother had an infection. That was my foundation bitch had what was called Pseudomonas, and it would affect all her puppies. Every puppy she bore was a problem child. Keeping them alive was an issue. Those 6 that she pulled out by C-section, when my vet came back, it was a new vet actually. I asked her for some drugs, and she refused to give them to me. And I told her, if I don't get these drugs, I'm going to lose these puppies. And she wouldn't give them to me. She pretty much hung up on me. Wouldn't even give me a amoxicillin, nothing.
Wow.
And I lose them all in record time. And I called her the next week because I had a daughter of hers who had just had a litter too. So this was next generation. And I called her and I told her, well, I want these puppies. I want you to give them the once over, give them a quick exam, just, because I wanted to make sure what I went through with her mother, wasn't going to be an issue. So I took her in, just for an exam. And, and since then, the mother and her Pseudomonas, I never had that issue again. Never had it with another one of my girls. Just the first one, the foundation bitch. Mm-hmm. Everything after that was superb health. Picture of health. They were so healthy, it drove me crazy because I sat around doing nothing but twiddling my thumbs, watching them grow.
Right.
Was nothing for me to do. All of Sissy's puppies, man, I worked like a dog to keep those puppies around. Mm-hmm. It's like, man, hand feeding, 2 weeks, no sleep, and still lose some, but, her survivors, it's like her first 2 survivors ended up champions, and that was out of a litter of 10. She had 2 survivors. Both of those ended up champions.
Wow.
Yeah, one was the second winningest one in the country back in his day, It's like, but it's like I said, I lost 8 of those litter mates though, and it's like you always lose the best ones first. It's
right.
like, it's like the ones that were left weren't the cream of that crop, but they still ended up being finished in their own rights.
How many puppies do you average a litter?
That's a good question. And that depends too. I'm thinking the food may have a lot to do with that. When I was feeding Solid Gold, a dozen average. on average. I had one male who threw me 49 puppies in 4 litters.
Wow.
And he came from a line of males too. All the males before him always threw double digits, like no less than 10 puppies. And he gave me 49 in 4 litters. Like 10, 12, 13, and 14. I think the food might have had something to do with that. Probably had a lot to do with it. Yeah, you never can tell. I think when I switched off of solid gold, the average number got lower on my litters.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think the solid gold may have played a big part in it. Very good food. I just can't afford to feed it anymore. Even if it does give you 12, 13 every pop.
Right.
You know, it's like it just got too expensive. But it was a very good food. I guess it's still pretty similar. I think they changed owners. The original owner was pretty good. She was a nutritionist by profession, and her food was considered the best in the world. And a lot of the foods today are pretty much some sort of imitation of what she was doing for a long, long time. You know, it's like a lot of these holistic foods today are pretty much copies of what she was doing.
Mm-hmm. For a prospective buyer of one of your puppies that's never had a Bordeaux before, what would be some of the questions you would ask, and what are some of the things that you would inform them about the proper care and what to expect from full-grown adult Bordeaux?
Well, I would hope if they're looking that they know a little about the dogs already.
Mm-hmm.
I pretty much don't ask many questions. I give them a price. It's my price is not on the cheaper end. You know, I'm the first one to tell them that you can find cheaper puppies out there. You know, you're just looking for a puppy, just looking for a pet. You know, the cheaper ones. So I try to keep my price up to ensure that they go to good homes.
Mm-hmm.
No guarantee, but I think it's as good as any questions you might ask, because they probably got a list of answers they think you want to hear already.
Right.
But I do give them a pamphlet with the puppies, which I go through their history, and nutrition and training, and I try to give them an idea of what they're into. I believe that these puppies, you know, regardless of what kind of dog you're looking for, that these puppies can pretty much fill that need.
Mm-hmm.
I've had people take them and turn them into service dogs. I'm thinking back in the 90s, there was one who took the Newfoundland water rescue test and passed it.
Wow.
Back then, late 90s, there was one that was world champion in pulling, beat the English Mastiff champion. I think it was over 4,000 pounds dead weight he pulled.
Wow.
And, you know, the show dogs, I don't know how good they are at show dogs, you know. But they've been taking Westminster lately. So, who knows, you know? It's like, I don't know. It's like, I haven't had many of them come back to me, put it like that,
right.
You know? There haven't been many who have tried to return dogs, but every now and then one comes back. The female I just bred here was a throwback. She came back to me over a fight with another dog she lived with, fighting over food when, you know, the owners were away. And I guess it got a little bloody. She tore little bulldog's ear. scratched up or something. I don't know. But they got young kids in the house. And they figured, their kids were so young that dog fighting, especially with the, Bordeaux involved, was not the best situation for them. So she came back. And yeah, there hasn't been a lot of other ones who have come back this way. I had one guy, he got mad. He had just shampooed the carpet and came home from work, and the dog had pooped on the carpet. He had just cleaned the day before, like rented a steam cleaner or something. So that one ended up coming back too, But other than that, yeah, people usually fall in love, and they usually fit right in. So I don't think there's really a lot to tell people. Most of my dogs got great temperaments. This girl that came back, I don't know, she's got a little too much temperament. She doesn't back down to anything. She came into my house. She wasn't born here. She's out of my lines, but she was born at somebody else's house. And the first time she saw my house is when I brought her back in. But all my other dogs were born here. They were raised here. They're like family. This one comes in and she kind of stood her ground to all of them, the whole pack. It's like she does not back down. After she had the pups, they all beat her up. They got her one day. They jumped her like the rest of my dogs jumped on her. They didn't. They scratched her up a bit, but they didn't really hurt her. I said, I'm trying to tell everybody they weren't trying to hurt her. They were just trying to put her in her place. If they was trying to hurt her, they would have hurt her. Mm-hmm. They were just trying to initiate her, I think.
Right. And let her know.
Yeah, let her know, this is still our house, Yeah. They're kind of mad. They're all jealous of the litter she had, Everybody wants to claim her puppies. I think people have to learn about these dogs. And I wish them luck with it. It's like I said, my first one, I never had it on a leash, and I took him everywhere. And I don't know how I ever got away with all that, but
yeah.
But we went everywhere. We stayed in hotels. We went out to concerts at the park, and he was never on a lead. He was always by my side. If I called him, he was there. And I said, he had more sense than most people have.
Right.
So, I don't really know what to tell people other than the dog is going to be what you make them be. I tell them one thing you don't want to make them is a protection dog. You don't want to train them for protection because, for one, they're good at it. And most importantly, they're stubborn. And teaching them to protect, teaching them to attack and all that is easy, but teaching them to stop could be impossible. So you don't want to teach it to them because you want to be able to control it. And if you teach them that, it becomes a game to them. They become very efficient at it, and getting them to stop, if they're hard-headed, they don't listen. It's easy to teach them. Doesn't mean they're going to listen to you. I tell people they think they're smarter than you are.
Right.
They know what they can get away with. And the first one I had, his father was trained like a soldier. The breeder was Army Canine Corps, and he trained his father to kill. And as a result, his father spent his life locked up in a shed. And I got a peek of him one day, and I thought his son was awesome, but he was even more so. He made his son look weak, and I don't know of another dog that made his son look weak like that. But his father was a beast. All muscle. I got a peek at him one day, and his owner told me, he says, I have to keep him locked in there because if he saw you in the yard, he'd want to rip your head off. He's got a one-track mind, and that's to take your head off. He says, I taught him how to kill, and I couldn't stop it. I couldn't get him to break. He won't stop. And he's got a one-track mind now. You know, he was taught how to kill a man. That's all he wants to do.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's the one thing I advise him against is, you know, protection training is that's what you want to do with the dog. It's not the dog you want. You know, it's like, you know, and if it is, then I hope you know what you're doing. Because, you know, there's professionals out there that will tell you not to. Don't even think about it. Yeah, they've got a protective instinct in them. And it doesn't need to be tweaked any. Like I said, if you're going to tweak it, I hope you know what you're doing. Because these are a lot of dogs to try to handle, you know. Like I said, pulling champions, you know, 4,000 pounds dead weight, and you try to hold that dog back.
Yeah, forget it.
They can be something else. But like I said, if you just raise them normally, I think their natural instincts are plenty for you know, for most situations. I don't think you need much more than a Bordeaux around. But then again, you probably don't need much more than a Chihuahua around for most people, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Just a dog yapping is enough protection for most people.
Yeah, for sure.
These guys have good instincts, though, good senses about them. Every now and then they come across somebody they just don't like. But usually that's somebody who just doesn't like them either. You know?
Right, yeah.
You know, it's like, it seems to me every time they find somebody like that, there seems to be a reason for it. You know, sometimes, you know, the guy's obviously guilty of something. You know? Other times it's just, they're just shaking like a leaf. They're scared to death. So the dog probably figures they're up to no good. Must be the bad guy. Look at them. They're over there shaking. They must have did it. If you're breeding to make money, yeah, I'm thinking you're going to need a lot of luck. In the beginning, I didn't have a whole lot of that. You know, it's like in the beginning, I learned a lot of lessons. But having puppies was no easy task.
Right.
And definitely wasn't profitable. I estimate that I must have spent a couple $100,000 before I made a dime.
Right.
But like I said, in the beginning, I had a problem situation. It wasn't easy to deal with. If it wasn't for the vet I had, I don't think I would have ever made it this far. I fired 6 vets when I started. And then the 7th one was the one who schooled me. You know, we put a name on what I was dealing with, gave me a treatment protocol, and built me up from there. But yeah, the first time I bred, it was total disaster. It's like 100% mortality. Not fun. Right. And the thing is, I thought that before it came, it's like before the puppies were born, I took the dog to a vet, and she had a discharge. And I asked him about the discharge, and he told me, oh, it's nothing to worry about. It's very benign as long as you're not breeding her. And I said, Doc, I'm like, she's pregnant. And he said, no, she's not. And I'm like, Doc, she's pregnant. She's due in 2 weeks. And he looks at her and he tells me, no, she's not pregnant. And I said, Doc, listen, I know she's in good shape, but she's pregnant and she's due in 2 weeks. She goes, no, she's not pregnant. And I'm like, Doc, I raised this girl from a puppy. I'm telling you, she's pregnant. She's due in 2 weeks. And he goes, she's not pregnant. I'll bet my license on it. I was like, I don't even know how to argue with you. You talking this smack, you betting your license. I'm telling you, she's pregnant. You haven't even touched her. And you're going to tell me she's not. Let me get out of here, right? Well, 2 weeks later, she had her puppies. She had 6 of them. And because of that discharge she had, they all died. Yeah, and that was my introduction to breeding Dog D Bordeaux,
right. Yeah.
And that vet, I'm like, well, what was his license worth?
Right.
So I'm thinking I fired him. I fired another 5 after him. And I was going to see vets, and I was like, just give me the bill and make it good, because you're not going to see me in this office again. This is your one and only shot. So bill me. You better make it right, because I'm not coming back here. And I did that with half a dozen vets, and I found one, and yeah, she schooled me. She put a name on it. She ran some tests and gave me some meds and started treating it, and took me and got me on the right footing. She was a reproductive specialist, by the way.
Right.
And she was something else. Wasn't your average vet. She said she had a client who would come up here to Connecticut once a year with all of her dogs from Florida. She'd make a trip up here with all her dogs just so this woman could give them a physical, give them a yearly exam.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how bad she was.
Yeah.
Imagine collecting all your dogs in Florida and heading up to Connecticut.
No.
Just for a vet appointment. Yeah, she was that good. Her X-ray machine was built into the floor.
Oh yeah, that makes it a lot easier, doesn't it?
Problem solved, huh?
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, and I haven't seen anybody copy her yet. And if they do, she ought to strike them down. She's not with us anymore.
Right.
But her X-ray setup was the cat's meow,
Yeah.
I mean, man, you couldn't ask for anything more, especially with the Mastiff. It's like I'm thinking a horse or, any other big animal. Yeah, a setup in the floor is perfect. Only makes sense.
Yeah. If you had all the time and money and that wasn't an issue, and what would be the second breed you'd put on your yard, and why?
Wow. At my age, I don't know. I think my age would be a consideration, because there's quite a few breeds out there I wouldn't have handled.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't handle at this age. But, if age wasn't a factor, just a dog in my heart, it's like, I think I wouldn't be with these guys for 30 years now if they weren't it.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking, I remember when the Cane Corso first started taking off. There was one in particular who was, he was being shown at the time I looked into him. But he was all black, except for his limbs. All 4 of his limbs were black and white brindle. And just the look of him, yeah, I fell for that one. The Cane Corso is a breed, not so much. But maybe,
Yeah.
Maybe, just because I think they I heard it was pretty much a scam that was thrown together, by the breeders who claim they found it. But regardless of whether it is or isn't, I think, I think it is. I think the guy I heard it from, I think, was a reliable source. And I think, it was a made-up breed. all of a sudden appeared like magic. But I think if what they did is true, then it should be a healthier breed, just because of, what's involved in it. It should have more longevity and more stamina than the Bordeaux that we're working with. Not sure yet. I think time will tell. I used to think about breeds that would enhance the Bordeaux, something I could mix with them.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I started, there was only 63 of them registered in the country.
Mm-hmm.
So, back then it was a matter of bloodline was a big concern, just having enough blood to go around. And I always, kind of entertained the thought of introducing new blood, doing the total outcross on these guys. Mm-hmm. And used to imagine what would you use if you were going to bring in some more blood. What would it be? Wouldn't be the bulldog. We've been trying to get that blood out ever since we put it in. Mm-hmm. And, but I was thinking, I don't know, maybe the Ridgeback. I mentioned that to a Ridgeback breeder, and she liked to run me off her place, And I don't know, it's like the Connie Corso is interesting. The Malinois, I think, is way too much dog for most people. But if I was in my 20s, maybe. A lot of dog though. It's like when I found the Bordeaux. It's like I wasn't looking for a Bordeaux. I was looking for a Rottweiler, and for all the stereotypical reasons. I wanted a guard dog. Mm-hmm. Didn't really need one, but I guess I would have felt more comfortable being out in the country having that guard dog around. So I thought I wanted a guard dog, but I'm thinking that Roddy puppy ended up staying with me, and he was a stone guard dog, and he was too much. He was a bit more than what I or anybody else needed, really. He was ready to guard anything.
Yeah.
And a lot of the Rottweilers today don't really have that drive in them, but no, he had a guard dog drive. So the things I think I might want are probably things I'd probably be mistaken about. I think the Bordeaux, I said I've spent half my life with these guys. And, I really don't look at other dogs. If I do, I compare them to these. And I don't think any of them overall offer what these guys offer. Mm-hmm. I think their temperament and everything else, their temperament, their intelligent, I take some things away, like their stubbornness. And but you can work with that with training and everything. I pretty much let my other dogs raise my dogs. So a lot of the problems I have with mine are pretty much my own fault. Not putting the time into these guys. I kind of let them throw their weight around as they want to, and replacing them with another breed. No, I'm not really done with this one yet. Yeah, listen, I had dogs before a Bordeaux, but the Bordeaux, man, I tell people, I tell them when I don't have puppies, it's like, I guess the economy has affected me because my phone doesn't blow up the way it used to. Mm-hmm. For a long time, even after I had puppies, my phone would ring for the next 3 months. People still looking. Now I'm lucky if I have them on the floor and offering them, it's hard to get those calls in. There's a lot more Bordeaux around, a lot more breeders. They're everywhere. But back when I first started, if I didn't have puppies, I'd tell them, well, you can find them elsewhere and a lot cheaper than what I'm offering them for, but I always tell them to take your time if you're looking, try to get one as healthy as possible, especially back then, when their health issues seemed to be a lot more prevalent. And I tell them the reason being is, if you get this puppy, it's going to attach itself to your heart. That's the first thing it's going to do, is it's going to attach itself to your heart. Mm-hmm. And if something should go wrong, it should get sick, have some issues, I said, your wallet is going to follow.
Yeah.
And that's what I would caution people against. Don't go out there and rush in to get just any puppy. Make sure you get the healthiest specimen you can get, mm-hmm. especially if you're dealing with a breed like this. You don't want to have a problem child. You want to have, the best puppy you can get your hands on, the best one you can afford. That's what you want to start with. You might get lucky and find a dog that's being sold too cheap and be a picture of health. But I don't know. There's a lot of problem childs out there, even if you're dealing with reputable breeders. Some of the worst cases came from reputable dealers that I've heard of. Mm-hmm. And I tried to defend them, saying, there was one breeder, I'm like, well, she's produced a lot of champions. I mean, probably more champions in this country than anybody else. And it was a doctor, a veterinarian, had called me about a puppy she had got from this woman, and it had skin problems, it had hip problems, and had seizures. Hip, seizures, skin. I think that was it, And this dog of hers, she said, had the nerve to have a seizure in the middle of her Christmas party and died.
Wow.
And, all she wanted was a dog that wouldn't have seizures. And I kind of laughed at that. And she was a veterinarian too. And I told her, I said, that Bordeaux gave you just what you deserved. I mean, that Bordeaux, he threw the book at you. Mm-hmm. And there was nothing you could do for him. I was like, wow, you're a doctor. There's nothing you could do to help that Bordeaux. That's our dilemma with these guys, Mm-hmm. It's like not just producing them, it's producing them healthy and making them healthier and giving them that stamina. Here it is, a vet, and all she could do was watch the dog die in the middle of her party. But the breeder who bred it, I said, had a lot of champions that she produced. And I'm like, it's like, I don't know what you say. It's like, got to take the good with the bad or what? She produced a lot of animals, and that was probably, the biggest part of the problem is she produced so many. I don't know if she had the quality control, she could have had, I think she produced so many that, it's like, hey, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose type of thing. I don't know. Right. There's breeders in every state these days. I can't fly them anywhere as easily anymore, It's like I used to fly them all over the country out. I flew one to Europe, a couple to South America, the Caribbean. I can't fly them like that anymore. It's like you're lucky if they'll let them on the plane.
Yeah.
It wasn't the economy. It was the rules they put into place and a lot of things. It's like, none of my dogs used to sell locally. I used to fly them everywhere, all over the country, outside of the country. It's like very few of my dogs ever sold locally. Now they're all selling locally.
Yeah.
So the economy, who knows? I said, I think it's more than just the economy. I thought the market was dead 15 years ago. And every year since then, I'm like, that's it. We've gone too far. There's too many of them out there. They're going to kill the market, And I don't know. It never really seems to happen. It's like one of the first breeders I bred with, told me that Charlie Warnick, he said that these dogs seem to keep their numbers in check. And this is 30 years ago, back when, I said you didn't have as many bloodlines. The health issues were running pretty rampant. And he figured, they weren't easy to breed, he figured, they keep their own numbers in check, that we'd never have a problem with overpopulating these guys because, they've got a short lifespan, they've got their health issues, and the bloodlines, they were still a rare breed back then too. So, I don't think anybody saw it getting this far, and as far as the market, the economy, and where these guys stand, I'm not sure. I said, I think we're out of business every year.
Right.
Because I know where all these breeders are, It's like, and it seems like everybody and their mother's trying to have puppies, I try not to pay too much attention to it, I don't pay attention to the other breeders anymore. I should. But, I'm thinking even if I did, I don't know if the information you get from them is going to be legitimate or not, It's like when you talk about health and bloodlines and all that, I said pretty much even breeders are going to tell you what you want to hear. It's like I'm pretty honest about mine, but I don't know how many other breeders would be, Here's a good example. It's like a doctor in Florida had a dog that he had a pen hip evaluation done on him, and she had an OFA evaluation done, right? And the OFA evaluation gave this Bordeaux excellent hip rating, like totally excellent, like A++. But the pin hip rating was one of the lowest on the list of pin hips. The laxity was one of the biggest ones on pin hip of dogs that were certified. And I called her and I asked her what the story was. How can you have an excellent? It's like the only other Bordeaux I heard of that should have got an excellent was the champion I produced, Mumbo. The vet that took the X-rays said that he had the best hips he had ever seen, and he sent the X-rays off to OFA, and they lost the X-ray. So he had to take the pictures all over again and send them to OFA, and I think he got like a fair rating on his hips, just like average when it was all said and done. Now this woman who's a vet down in Florida, she gets an excellent rating from him, but at this time they have the pin hip, and the pin hip does more precise measurements, and it was like one of the lowest on the list in pin hip. And I'm like, so how do you get this excellent from OFA and you got one of the lowest ratings out there on pin hip? I'm like, something doesn't add up here.
Yeah.
So what's going on? And she's like, well, hey, it is what it is. I'm like, all right, whatever. I'm thinking it is what it is. I'm thinking, yeah, and you are a vet, so who knows what it is? Friends in high places or something. I don't know. But something didn't seem to add up. So, even with the official criteria, you never really know what you're doing with. It's like whether you're shopping for puppies or a stud or anything else. It's like you gotta take a look at the dog and make your best judgments. I don't think you're going to get access to like medical records and stuff, even if you wanted to. Said I've had vets lie to me about. Not vets, but owners lie to me about, the credentials on their dogs. It's like, easy to fall for it. All right, 8 months old. I said that he's 8 months old. I never taught him anything. All right, we've gone everywhere. He's with me, you know. Anytime I'm not working, we're out and about. But we come home. He's 8 months old. I come up to my front door, and I open the door, and I look at him, and I told him, I said, go check it out. And he went in my house, and he did a police search around my entire house. Came back to the front door. Left me in shock.
Right.
I'm like, I can't believe this dog just sniffed every closet, went in every room, every corner. I never taught him nothing. He's 8 months old. And he just did a sweep of my house.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But he was something else.
Mm-hmm.
Another day, I come home, I told him, go around the back of the house. He ran around the back of the house. I go through the house, I look out the back porch, and he's sitting there in the backyard. Never trained him. Just asked him, and then bang, boom, he's on it.
Yeah, those are the kinds of dogs you dream about.
Incredible dog.
Yeah.
And these other guys, they all have that potential. It's just a matter of if you have the time for them,
mm-hmm.
you know? And their lifespan, it's pretty devastating. You know, 10 years, even at 10 years, man, I think, you know, I don't know. 10 years out of these guys still isn't long enough. It's like, they're amazing stuff.